Welcome to The Plain Truth, a show where we try to get into some of the mysteries and anomalies and the dirty underbelly of the world around us. I'm your host, Paul, and along for the ride this week, we have Ed Grimsley, who's quite well known for night vision goggles and looking at all those strange things up in the sky. Ed, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Well, thanks for coming. We appreciate it. Yeah, I can hear you. And along for the ride is my friend Michelle. Michelle, are you there?
I'm here.
Well, good. Let's get going. Ed, you're quite well known for looking at all that strange stuff in space. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into that?
When I was about 10, 12 years old, I saw two UFOs very plain and very close. And I waved at them, and they waved back, and my dad was saying, "Hold still, those are UFOs." And I says, "They know we're here." And ever since then, I've been trying to keep track of them, look at them, find them, and been rocking the world with how to use night vision goggles and find them. And you can also, if you don't know how to look and what you're doing, you can find a few satellites. You can find some bugs, some birds, some bats, and airplanes. But they're all different, and if you know what you're looking for, you can tell the difference easy. So.
Okay, that sounds good. I got a question for you. If somebody tries to find UFOs, do they try to find you?
I think that there's quite a few people contact me to learn how to find the UFOs, and I think that there's times when there's actually been UFOs have perhaps came into the neighborhood to be seen or get attention. So
that's kind of the rumor people have been saying forever, is that you can only see UFO. Well, I shouldn't say you can only, but you can normally find them, or it's a lot easier to find them when you essentially request them that they come.
Well, some of that happens, but I think they're around, and you don't have to give them a request. I think that when you're viewing and looking, just be respectable of the people around you, and be respectful of those things that are coming by. Some of it is possibly spiritual. Some of it is very definitely alien, and maybe even humanoid from another area, or even within the earth. I've seen them come in and out of the ocean. I've seen them just appear and then fly along, and I've seen them stop, start, play like they're stars, and there's just a whole group of things that take place, and they're up there, and usually it's in space. Sometimes you can see them down lower. It's a lot of, if you don't doubt things and open your mind, you can see better with an open mind than you can with a closed mind. And there's plenty of things happening. You don't have to make anything up. You don't have to try to convince people otherwise. Michelle has been on some of our adventures, and she's seen plenty of things. And one night we ran out of film, and she spotted a big craft, and I said, "Yes, and there's two more over there," and there was three great big craft coming in from deep space, heading down and cutting across, and they were actually looked like they were heading for the Sea of Perez. So,
well, so it sounds like you've seen just about everything. How long have you been doing this, if I may ask?
Well, when I was about 10, 12 years old when I saw the first. And then when I was 16, I saw battles going on over a hunting camp, and I woke everybody up in the whole camp and the camp next to us, and people laid out in their sleeping bags and watched for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then went back to sleep. I stayed up through the whole night watching all the battle, and it was from darkness till daylight. I could see them battling and blowing each other up and flying in formations and head-on runs and different maneuvers that they were doing. And the next day, my dad told the Air Force, we went to Reno for supplies, and went there to get the hunting camp supplies. And in return, the first guy, talked polite and nice, and said, yeah, there's been a lot of that reported tonight, or last night. And the next thing they put us through was like the interrogator, and he was telling my dad, well, you sure you saw this? Oh, that couldn't be possible. Have you ever had mental illness and all that? So my dad told him off really good and said, this is my time, not yours, and hung up on the guy. So you can see there's a lot of cover-up.
And when did you start using night vision goggles?
I started using them about close to 25 years ago. I had the weaker models that didn't work very good. And then about 20 years ago, I bought a higher tech that worked good and could instantly see them and what they were doing. And basically, I've been working on getting advanced, better equipment and models that you could legally take out of the country or in the country. And so I've got what I call now the EG for Ed Grimsley 7 and EG8, which is different tubes that are put in, and one's a Skywatch tube and the other is called the UFO tube. And you can truly see quite well and track devices. And then I can sell them to other countries as well as in this country. So that's basically trying to get the truth out to the people. But, you know, you can take the horse to the water, but you can't make them drink. And a lot of people do not understand just walking on Earth, what they see around them. Well, trying to show them what's out there, and while it's doing 100,000 miles an hour making turns, it's not a satellite. So you let people look, let them have their opinion. If they ask, well, what do you think that is, you tell them. And if you tell them something and they doubt it, well, fine, let them have their decision. You know, some people say I'm a little bit crazy, but I prefer to be a little bit crazy than really dumb. And if you don't think there's anybody else out there or anything else out there, then you're really dumb. And if you open your mind to a little craziness, you'll see it. You can start understanding what's going on.
So, Ed, I had a question about these goggles, these night vision goggles you've been working on. Are they kind of like commercial goggles that the U.S. military has? I've heard you've been adjusting them, having them made differently. Can you explain a little bit about the goggles you like to use?
Well, there's different colored tubes, and then there's military type tubes that are okay and do good, but I'm not looking at a soldier on the ground. I'm looking up for space and looking for it to show me moving objects and other things. So I've got some black and white tubes that are being made in another country, and it's also the technology law against shipping them out of this country. So I have worked with them and worked with factories to do different housings and then different tubes. And basically, I started putting together goggles that actually work as good or better than the military's good grade. and it's not an uncommon thing to have better viewing through mine than through the goggles of the military type grade. They're illegal to ship out of the country. So now I'm trying to solve the market problem of shipping out of the country, and it looks like it's going to work out good. So I've got people in a few countries looking through my goggles, and they're extremely happy, and it makes me feel good that I'm getting some accomplishment out of it, and that I'm breaking into this and telling people about the goggles and UFOs and what you can see and not see. Oh, not see.
Now folks can find these.
People. Oh, thanks. You just came in. I was going to do a little thing there on see or not see, and then not see is the reason why we're having trouble.
Well, I can definitely verify. I looked through in the earlier viewing, not Skywatches, that we used the tubes. They were like a green color, and the new ones that Ed had last time, they were much better. You could see a lot more with them. So whatever modifications he's had them made, it definitely is an improvement for the Skywatch.
So Ed, people can find these goggles at your website. Is it www.edgrimsley.com?
Yeah, you can find that, or you can just look me up under Ed Grimsley, and it's kind of all over the place, a couple million places, from what I've heard. And my address, my phone number is all there. I give it to the world, and I get calls from people from Sweden or from Ireland and different places that see a craft, and they really are stimulated about what they saw, and they'll call me. And I'll end up at 2 in the morning having an hour conversation on the other side of the world. And it's just it's an unbelievable thing once you start really getting into it and understanding it. You see things that people don't take notice of, and with the goggles, you can see it all the time, and you can see things. For example, a friend of mine was filming with an iPod through one of my goggles, and he said, "Oh, I just got some good stuff. There was this craft going over here, and it turned and it moved." And so I said, "Oh, okay, well, send me the copy." And so then it turns out to be this thing. So anyway, it turns out that this thing is behind what looked like a star, but it was a faking of a craft playing like it was a star. And in turn, it shows this one, and it flies, and you can see the image of what was supposed to be a star in front of it. And it went behind it, and you could see it passing and going on, and there's definitely no stars that are out there 200 miles. So this was another craft sitting there faking to be a star. And that's happened so many times, and it's so real, and people don't realize that a lot of the stars you see are not really stars. They're spacecraft, and they're on station or they're in one place, and sometimes you're looking and you'll see them start out and fly away. And sometimes you'll see other craft come near them, and they'll zip and they'll bug out because maybe they're not too friendly with each other. And it's just a lot of things that take place like that that tells you this is all true, and that we're being lied to by the governments, and that we may even have already been taken over by alien or humanoid sources trying to get control of mankind. Or maybe they are in control of mankind. But we're definitely lied to a lot, and I don't believe that that should be something that we allowed to have them do, but until we wake up the world, we're not going to have enough people standing up to do anything about it if they can. So,
Do you see like wars in space? Have you seen any of that?
oh yes, quite a bit of it. And I think a friend of Michelle's was with us, and he got to see one chasing another one firing back and one firing forward, and then the one in the front got hit, and it wobbled and was zigzagging, and the other one stayed with it. And then it looked like it was firing warning shots for this other one to stop. And so finally, there was two other craft came in, and they tried to corner it, and they would fire shots like a bow shot would be, and get it to come to a stop. And it stopped, and they would move around it, and they try to get it to go in a certain direction. And next thing you know is they're surrounded it, and then they're taking it, and they're moving off out into deep space with it. And our friend got to see that, and I got to see it. And the colored glasses that I had could see it easier than the greener colored ones. So Michelle didn't get to see it as good as her friend did. But maybe she can tell you a little bit about he was very impressed about what it was. In fact, he wanted to get a pair of goggles right away.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about that strobing craft that was going, and it had all the little glittery stuff around it. I could not see it as well, but yeah, he was pretty convinced that he was seeing it being fired on, and we watched it go across the sky for, gee, it must have been at least, what, 20 minutes or so?
Yeah, because it had gotten damaged and it wasn't going very fast, and the flashing was a strobe light. And a lot of times when these craft will get hit or damaged and they're in trouble, they turn on a strobe light that's really different and flashes a lot and very bright. And it's sort of like a rescue light going on because it's all bright sunlight up there. And it's not an unusual thing to see that happen after a battle if one of them survived and didn't get blown totally apart.
Well, but, I was on about maybe 5 or 6 sky watches, and that was the first time I ever saw the flashing one like that. And I've spent hours and hours looking at the sky with the goggles. But yeah, that one was really different.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we see it all the time on different areas or different groups, but if there's a night where it's a real busy night and there's a lot of activity and there's battling going on, you see that happen. I had one special occasion that was over Calistoga, and there was 2 of us watching, and this one chasing another one, and it came down on the other one. It was kind of like a surprise attack from above and from the rear, and he fired, and the other one zigzagged, and it missed it, and it fired back, and it didn't get a good direct hit, but it hit it hard enough to where it gave us some problems, and then it got fired on again, and then it was an explosion. And then after the explosion, a moment later, in the same direction, about the same speed, the strobe light came on and was flashing and was traveling across space at about 30,000 miles an hour, strobing. And it ended up that one craft came from another direction and flew in really fast and then pulled up next to it and was traveling along with it, and 2 came from another direction flying together, and one slowed up before the craft and one went on past it, and they both started circling it in a big circle as if they were protecting it from other attacks. And the one that had moved in first hooked up, loaded it up, whatever it did, and then it started out and was flying out and towards the moon, and one of the craft speeded up, went out in front of it, and the other one came up from behind, like as if they were protecting it, and the one carrying it was in the middle. And as long as I could see them, for as long as I could see them, they were headed out right straight out towards the moon, and I watched them until they disappeared, and I couldn't see them any further. So the battle took place right close to Earth, probably 200 miles out, and the last time I saw them, they were probably 10,000 miles out, heading into deep space. So they either had somebody to get back to some medical attention, or they had a hostage situation, and they were taking the prisoners back to their area. So there's so much that's going on that you see so many things, and if you watch it long enough and you spend half your life out there at night looking and studying it, you're going to see so many things that nobody else sees unless they spend a lot of time out there. And to understand what you see, sometimes there's a little confusion, but if you keep your mind interact and watch what's going on, you'll see things that you don't understand, but if you see it enough, you work on it, you try to get an understanding.
Hey, Ed,
yeah.
I got a question for you. Do you these fights and ships that are damaged and whatever, do you ever see them land on Earth or the moon?
No, I haven't seen them land on the moon. It's too far out. And I have seen them going close to the moon, and where they fade out to where you can just see them for so long. But I have seen ones that go from Earth at about 8,000 or 10,000 feet up that were flying, and they came across each other, and they kind of did a circle of each other and zigzagging, and then they both broke free and zoomed up into space and traveling very fast into space. And once they got up into space, then they started battling. But I think there might be a rule about no engagement at a lower level, because your debris and your craft and everything's going to be there. And if you battle out there and you get hit and damaged, your parts or your pieces are going to burn up like pieces of junk or debris or meteorites, and nobody's going to see it other than, well, look at that streaking in as a meteorite, and maybe it's half of a ship. You don't know.
Now,
okay.
I wanted to ask. The last time we went, we did see what kind of looked like a shooting star, and I think Ed said that he thought they were burning off debris. They were like dipping down into the atmosphere and coming back up, because it didn't really look like it didn't look exactly like a shooting star. It kind of arced, and then it just ended. It was just gone.
Yeah, what happens there sometimes is the craft will be maybe out in space a long way out or something, and have dust and particles and whatever on it, and maybe they need some energy or heat or however they make their electricity, and they come down, but they don't come straight in or at a deep angle like a meteorite would, being sucked down to the gravity. They'll go faster than normal, and if you could figure a left or right angle, or vice versa, they will shoot across, and they'll light up, and they'll glow, and they'll burn, and then they skip back out into space. And when she got to see that happening, and I think they're cleaning the craft or picking up energy.
Yeah, it was unlike a shooting star. It was something else, and it was very interesting looking.
Yeah, I see that a lot. And see, the thing is, it doesn't make sense, because if something comes down and is heated up and it's glowing and burning, that means Earth's gravity and the atmosphere and that should suck it in and not skip it back out into space. So I think that's a controlled situation where the craft is cleaned off, or picking up energy from the heat that it's creating by skipping in. And there's a big thing on YouTube about a great big craft vortexing the second energy out of the sun parked right next to it. So we know that there's things that are out there that can take a lot of heat. And this big craft is probably half the size of Earth. So,
have you ever seen what seems to be a man-made craft fighting or dealing with one of the non-man-made craft?
Yeah, I've seen different sizes and different shapes fighting, and the one that I call a Delta that looks sort of like a fighter bomber, it basically can speed up and look like a bolt of lightning leaving and go the speed of light and disappear. And I've seen them actually making turns. It's like a sliding turn. It's like you were skating on ice, no banking or turning that type of way, but just the whole craft just slides off in one direction. It changes its position and heads back another direction and then accelerates. And I've seen them do that and go slow and then speed up and then accelerate real rapidly and fire on this other craft and traveling at such a speed that it's just unbelievable. They do have extremely good weapons on it. If I ever was in a battle, I'd want to be flying one of those Deltas. They're very good. I've seen them in groups of threes, and two keep moving, and one slow up and drop back and then streak out in another direction, and then the other two turn, and they slow up, and then pretty soon here comes a couple of crafts coming from the side, and they just speed up enough to stay out in front. And these other are coming towards them like to do battle and chasing them. And next thing you know is the craft has slipped away by itself, comes streaking in and fires on both of them and blows them up, completely destroyed. And then he flew up in front of the others and did a celebration out in front of him and rise and turned and zigzagged and then went back and fell back into a tail position again of a three-point fighter group. So
do you with these kind of wars and whatever, do these tend to happen in certain locations on the Earth, or maybe that's not the right way of putting it, but I mean, do we see more fights over New Mexico than we see over, Brazil or something like that?
Well, I've been to New Mexico. I've seen them fight over New Mexico. In fact, on my video, there's 7 of them that came out of a big mothership and then started coming and flying out 2 by 2, kind of like a Noah story, but flying out. And my friend was videoing it through a pair of my goggles, and there was well-known people there in a group that were watching and seeing it, and people like Robin Falco, this girlfriend of Richard Hoagland, she got to see it and watch, and we were filming it. And then when we got it filmed, he played it back on a big screen, and we were watching him, and then all of a sudden people were going, hey, 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 and there's other goggles there, and they saw a group of about 15 come flying through at probably 150 miles up, and they were in a big wing formation, and they were fighter craft that were looking like the Delta ones that I tell you about. And we didn't get a chance to film it because he was running the film and the playback, and if he did, he would have erased what he saw with them coming out of a big ship. So, more cameras, more money, more information.
Now recently you went to the Caribbean, right? What did you see there?
A lot of water. No, I talked on the ship and was a presenter and on the panel, and I also at nighttime would go out with the night vision goggles and let people look that were on the group conference, and a few other people came up that I was wandering by, and I let them take a look, and you get to see a lot of things. There was one, not this last trip, but there was one trip before where a guy looked up and he says, "Isn't that craft up there, or is that birds?" And I looked up and I said, "No, that's 3 craft." And I says, "Look behind it, because sometimes you'll see higher craft that are more like protection or high guard." And sure enough, there they were, about 100 miles behind, coming down, one on each side of the group. And they came all the way down, and we lost track of them probably about 100 miles away as they were going closer and closer towards the water. And I've seen them come out of the water in Hawaii, and I've seen them go back in. And I've had people in Calistoga where we've seen groups of 3s coming in from deep space and then traveling towards the ocean. And one night we saw 3 coming in from deep space and 3 going out, and they flashed each other real quick, like a passing, changing of the guard. And one of the young people that were there that night called George Norrie, and he talked to George on the phone that was radio and told about it. And the kids just said, "Man, this is unbelievable. This is changing my life forever, because I know they're true and I know they're real." And, you know, how do you pass that off as, oh, there's birds or there's bats, or somebody puts the anonymous in there, "Oh, Ed Grimsley, he's just, he's lying through his teeth. He's just trying to make money. He's doing this and that." You know, if I was trying to make the bucks on this, I could do it differently. But when you try to tell people the truth, you're beating your head against the wall, because most people are skeptic. And then once they see it, they become aware, and then they want to know all about it. And how do I get goggles? How can I do this? You know, can you train me, teach me?
Well, then why don't
that?
we, yeah, that's a good point to get into that. How can people get goggles? How can they get training, groups that go out? Any information on that?
Well, I've taught a few people, and they're out looking and doing their own thing, and more power to them. And I don't care as long as they get the truth. But most of the time, there are people that try to cut my throat, get knowledge, and then try to get goggles and act like they're the ones that invented it and did it for 20 years. And basically, there's a pretty good-sized group of people in this world that are corrupt and looking for the buck. And I try to steer clear of them, because I don't think they're always given the best truth. They're trying to give the money opinion. And I tell people the truth, and if they like it, they like it, and if they don't, they don't. And I get a lot of criticism, and I give a little of it back. But, you know, it's real. I swear to God, I swear to Mecca, Buddha, whatever out there, that this is true. It's a fact. It's happening. And it's very fearful. I think that mankind is in danger. And I believe that when Adolf Hitler was working with aliens in World War II to take over the world and control it, share it with the aliens, that would be Nazis and their Aryan Brotherhood, which Aryan Brotherhood is possibly a form of human that is an alien type based, and they have, Germany lost the war, and the Nazis have kept going, and they're infiltrating our country, they're infiltrating everywhere they can, and businesses, and they're basically getting in control and trying to take a lot away from citizens and the humans so that they can control us and over-control us, and that if it doesn't change, we're going to all be slaves to that type of situation if they don't kill us and have us replaced by more alien or hybrid aliens. They're even building creatures such as a humanzee, which is a crossbreeding of a human and a chimpanzee, and probably plans are using them more like slave labor and warriors to fight their battles because they got 8-10 times the strength. And if you get them enough intelligence to say, yes, boss, and do what they want, they don't need intelligent humans to get the work done. And I've studied this a lot, and I can tell you that what I just said is so true. And people like Jim Mars, Richard Dolan, they know this stuff is going on. And people like Fred Bell, when he worked on these projects and worked on some of the inventions of it, told Jesse Ventura about it. They did a show. Well, after the show aired, it wasn't very long, and Fred Bell was killed. He had a heart attack and lung damage. Well, Kevin Smith's show, he and I communicated a lot, and we're friends. And we were thinking about doing something that might really shake the world up and do this, so we were working on it. And next thing I know is I get a phone call, and he's told me that he's worried about that he's going to be killed and maybe me. And in turn, 2 weeks later, he's dead and damaged heart and exploded lungs damage. Well, when they used HARP and they dropped all these birds out of the tree and have killed fish and stuff, it's frequencies. It's why they bought all the ammunition for the pistols, and they're training to kill zombies. Well, you can use a frequency weapon, sound weapon things, and damage people's nervous system and their minds. You can make them a zombie. And then you can shoot them simple because they're going to be wandering around, wondering where the hell they are, and they're going to get shot. So that's one way of killing and controlling the human race. And I really believe that there's a lot of plans against this, and that they're trying to manipulate us and hybrid us and change us. And Eisenhower made a treaty because I think he had no choice, because they had showed him more power and more ability, and they probably could have destroyed our military. And Eisenhower went to meetings and did that. And then later, my grandfather talked to Mamie Eisenhower at the White House, because Mamie Eisenhower was my grandfather's first cousin. And one of his other relatives is Rose Grimsley, which was a close friend or relative of Mamie Eisenhower. And my grandfather told me things that Mamie told him, because when they were kids, they were soulmates and crossed your heart and hoped or whatever, and had these truths, you know. And my grandfather told me about what was going on, because I had told him about the battles that I saw in the hunting camp. And he said he already knew, but he was sworn not to tell anything. And that Mamie Eisenhower cut him in on quite a bit of information. And everything that he told me has been looking towards being true. And I studied up on some things and found out that Laura Eisenhower is the great-granddaughter of Mamie. And so she's actually a distant cousin of mine, and we've talked about it, discussed it, and I've picked on her, and her boyfriend, I tease him and say, well, if you're really nice, I'll let you marry into the family. So I like to tease and kid people and have a good time. It's better to laugh a little than cry a lot.
Hey, Ed, if there are these Nazi-affiliated craft out there, as you're supposing, who are they fighting, do you think?
Well, I don't know for sure, but some of it might be the aliens that don't agree with the Nazi aliens. During the war, there was Nazi aliens working with Hitler. They flew a Bellcraft to the moon in 1938, and it's in secret military equipment and records, and that the project that where we went to the south, went to the Antarctic rather, I knew a man named Gosha that was retired, and I was like 15, 16 years old, and I would walk by his house in the street of Calistoga, and he had an old walrus head up on the post, and I talked to him, and he got more and more friendly and open to me, and then I had told him about the battle that I saw, and he told me he knew about that stuff, and that he was with Admiral Byrd on the adventure down there, and that actually a flying saucer came out and did displays and fired warning shots and that, and one of the ships was destroyed by the craft, and that they basically exited a little sooner than they would have because they had nothing to fight back against it. So, and when I hear this story later, and when I was 16, was told the story, and now 53 years later, you know that these pieces of the puzzle are falling together, and the truth is coming out, and it's getting together, but will it be in time? And I think that our government is in control through either Nazi, alien, or the New World Order boys, or the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower talked about. They're taking over, and they're trying to turn us into their total slaves. And I believe that the whole world is in trouble because of what's being done. And they gave you one president after another president, and then those presidents are probably puppets for the CIA or the New World Order, and they're the real ones in control. So, you got.
Well, there's no question we've seen a lot of that. But the question is what's going on in other countries. They seem to be resisting, and the U.S. seems to be losing power. But anyway, if we can get back to some of the things that people can see. So I've been out looking, and I haven't seen a lot because when I've had the chance, the weather wasn't the best. But I am curious.
They chemtrail the hell out of things, and it blurs and hazes the clouds over. And if they know I'm going to be someplace at a big conference, and I got 100 people waiting to look through the goggles, we have a rough time being able to see, whether it's in Nevada or out in the middle of the ocean or where, and we see a lot of chemtrail activity. And I think chemtrails are designed to dumb us down, to maybe cool the earth a little bit, or make the climate better for alien beings that are on Earth to survive better. And all the time that we are looking up, we can tell the difference between a chemtrail and the condensation in a chemtrail. And they're putting material in there that are killing bees. It's the same material that the Nazis used and sprayed and gave doses of it to the Jews in prison camps. And if you think that 3 or 4 million people being killed by the Germans back then, the Nazi powers, was really bad and evil, wait until you see what they're going to try and do to us again. It's, there's going to be lack of food, there's going to be starvation, there's going to be blockades where they don't let supplies come through. They've even brought foreign military in to help control and take the guns away from the citizens. Well, the other day they got a rude awakening when the government sent some troops in and stole this rancher's cattle in Nevada. And next thing you know, is one person calling another person that, and over 400 very heavily armed citizens went out and basically said, stand down, or we're going to have a war right here. And I think it's not over yet. I think that the government stood down then because it wouldn't have been a good situation, and it would have been a very start of an uprising in the United States that would have made internal war between the government and the citizens. So
well, Ed, I think we know that. Ed, I think we know that there's been a direction about a kind of fascistic direction in the U.S. for decades. But getting back to the stuff in the sky, I think people want to know, like, for example, about the chemtrails. Do you think these planes any of them are alien planes? Are they drones? What do you think is going on?
Well, I know that I've seen some of them going out and they're turning everything, just saturating, like going between LA and San Francisco sometimes, just saturating and making crossing trails and X patterns and things to where they can be seen from satellite. But then turning the sky hazy and cloudy when it wasn't. And it's not clouds that are doing it, it's the chemtrails. And they barium and the minerals and the things that they have in it. And that's affecting our pineal glands, and it's killing bees, and it's damaging food supply. So is it the aliens behind it? Is it the humans behind it? Or is it both? It's a mere fact that you can see the plane and then it's going really fast and increases its speed, and all of a sudden the trail shuts off, and then you look and you can't see the plane. And then pretty soon...
What do you think happens to these planes?
Well, I know that there's cloaking devices. I know that there is things like the Philadelphia experiment where they transported things, and I think these craft have that ability, and some of them might be military, some of them might be a program working with the aliens, but I've also seen them go faster at times than normal airplanes would fly, and they're spreading that, and then they shut it off, and then next thing you know is they're coming back again a mile away, laying another trail, and I think it's the same plane.
Do you think
the same craft?
Do you think that the plane that we see is actually not a real plane, that it's a hologram on top of a UFO?
I didn't say that. I said I didn't know what. But I think that it could be a UFO making a visual look like an airplane. So that you see an airplane like a hologram or whatever. And I've actually seen UFOs, 3 of them, coming from the city reservoir in Calistoga, where they stood over the top, went down one at a time into the water, came back up, all 3 joined, and then they turned on lights and flew the length of the valley and left, looking just like there was a big airplane, but there was 3 individual craft. And my old ranch neighbors up there, they got to see it. And they're going, oh, my God. And I was talking to them, and that's my neighbor, and saying, this is so strange. And a lot of these things are going on, and we're just being lied to. So was it aliens picking up water supplies? Was it some of our ships picking up fresh water? And are they taking ocean water, fish supplies, and zooming them out to places like the moon or Mars or deeper space? I can't tell you and give you proof of it, but I believe it's happening, and I'm not getting a help from any hallucinogenics or medicines or anything. It's what you see, and if you study
Hey, Ed.
what you see.
Ed, I don't know if you've heard of the name Ingo Swann, but he was the developer of remote viewing for the U.S. government. And in his book Penetration, he talks about getting a ride to Alaska where an alien craft was essentially sucking up a lake and taking it away. So it's possible that this phenomenon is not new, that this alien presence has been around for a long time and doesn't intend to do us good. By the way, Michelle has a question. Michelle, are you ready?
Hey, Ed, Cliff did...
Are you talking Cliff High?
Yeah, Cliff. And in one of his Ouijos, it was from last February in 2013. It was E34, around 9 or 10 minutes in, if anybody wants to listen to it. He talked about what he called the drive-in movie spaceship. And here's what he described. I'm going to try to describe it the way he did. He said that you would see like a rectilinear, straight-edged flash that would be ahead of a spaceship that he was seeing. And he said he saw this at least 3 times. It was kind of like a sleek version of a truncated stainless steel water bottle. That's how he described the craft. Anyway,
yeah,
the blunt.
I have talked about that before.
Oh, okay. So
he
what?
I've talked quite often. I introduced him to the night vision goggles and got him his first pair of goggles. It's always
okay.
Good.
Well, anyway, so he said it was like kind of looked like a stainless steel water bottle with a blunt end aimed forward, and then it would flash, and it would like make it like a screen. It kind of looked like a drive-in movie, and then the spaceship jumps into the light, and it's gone, and then it would flash again farther along in the sky. And he said that it took about 16 flashes to get across the arc of the sky, and he watched that like 3 times happen. And I was just curious. You said you had spoken with him about that. What is your explanation of that? It was kind of a strange story. I didn't see anything like that, of course. But
well, I've seen that kind of stuff happening, and when you don't quite understand it, but you start working on it and putting it together. And the thing is that there is probably different beings from different sectors of the galaxy, and there's different craft. And sometimes I believe that they come by and they actually pick up water and supplies here, and maybe some of them have a base in the ocean or in some of the big lakes. They can do a lot of things that just people just don't believe is possible. That's because they have high technology and ability. And when you see Fox News in Colorado, Denver, showing a guy that was filming just to be filming, and he thought something strange going on, and he plays the film different, and here's a spacecraft that goes in and out of Denver, Colorado, downtown at high speed, and it's in a different thing where you can't see its range, and it flies right on in and goes right into the ground. And we know, the people that I've worked with, we know that there are beings that live within the earth. I also know that there are beings that are out in the ocean. Are they the same, or is there different groups? I mean, I can't sway people or tell them, but I'm telling them, be aware, figure it out. We're not alone.
So do you think that some of these ones that they've seen him go into the earth, that they could be like I remember a Star Trek episode where they had an opening in the side of a mountain, and they had projected like rocks on it, and then that they could just make that the projection would go away and they could just go in and out. So there wasn't even really anything there. It was just masked to make it look like it was closed. You think that there's that kind of stuff actually going on?
Yes, definitely.
Wow. So where do you think these places are located at? That you could maybe pinpoint a location?
Well, I know that there's out off the coast of Bodega Bay, California, and Tamaulipas, probably 150 miles to 200 miles out. I know that craft have gone in and out of the ocean there a lot. Over Hawaii, off the coast of Kona, I've watched them fly out of the water and rise up into space and zoom away. I've seen some come back, slow up, and drop into the water. Looked like it was probably 50 miles out over the volcano. I've seen them do that. And I was in a research thing. I study ways to make energy and how to make a better world for us. And I was over in the island of Iceland, the country of Iceland, rather, and I went and I studied their hydrogen making plant and how they make hydrogen and refill the vehicles, the buses, and the city cars, and went through the plant with the engineers and discussed some of my ideas, and I really believe that the technology is being held back greatly, and if you invent the wrong thing, you disappear or you die. And it's not a good thing. There's more powers being used against us than there is for us. And maybe some of the vehicles that we see fighting with each other is maybe some of the guys that want to get us the technology and help us, and maybe those who are in charge may want to stay in charge, and they're fighting out with them to keep control of us. And,
hey, Ed, do you think it's possible that we're kind of facing, I don't know how to say it, but let's say, a good side of NATO or whatever, the U.S., fighting, dark aliens? I mean, could it be that there's actually some good forces inside the U.S. or the West?
Well, I definitely know a lot more than I can tell you right now, because I've got some friends in government positions that are in very elite things, and if I corner them and talk to them, they open up to a certain extent, and usually they tell me, I'm right, but we can't tell you that you're right, but we can tell you you're not wrong. And I believe that everything that we look at, there's a dark and a light, and there is evil and there's good. And I believe that a lot of things that are taking place is good against evil. And I think that there is another craft that it looks like a giant bubble, like a kid blowing a bubble with a little soap bubble. But this thing is the size of a hot air balloon with no basket to carry people. And sometimes out over a subdivision, you'll see it zoom in from like space or a long way away, traveling at the speed of a fighter jet, and then slow up instantly and hover 100 feet above the subdivision, and then move a little way one way and a little another, and then they stop, and then disappear and zoom, they're gone. And when I go over and I check, I find out the next day that somebody died there. And so my thought is, are these spiritual vehicles? Do they clutch your soul? Do they clutch your spirit? There's just so many things that we don't understand, but yet it's real. And I've showed these vehicles to other people, and then they've seen them on their own. And up in Priest Lake in Idaho, visiting a friend up there, I stopped beside the lake, got my goggles out, and I'm looking out. It's night, and all of a sudden a big craft raised out of the water, and it's like a big bunch of water went out with it. And then it was falling back in like as if somebody threw a bucket of water in the air. But the vehicle continued and went up and went out into space. And that thing was probably 300-400 feet across, looked like your standard Hollywood type flying saucer. But it was down there in that lake. And was it there as a base, or do they just fly in, get supplies, get water, they rest up, take shelter, and zoom back out again? So these things are happening. They're real. And I have no reason to lie about it or try to BS people, and I'm trying to make people aware of it. And I think that our government knows way more than they're telling, and maybe our government is being controlled not to tell us. So,
well, they lie on principle now, right? So, are there things in space that hit, like with the start of the Iraq War or anything like that? Do you see any kind of, alien influence or this stuff in space?
Well, I think it's been around for a long time, and I think there's some aliens that maybe thrive off of watching a battle or doing that type of thing, because Alexander the Great talks about chariots above his battlefields firing lightning at each other while he's on the ground battling, and that there's some stuff in the air up there in the edge of space that was battling too. So is there some of their forces on the ground and some of their forces in the air? Are we interacting with them? Are we a tool? Do we fight a lot of battles for aliens that we don't know we're fighting? Or those that are in control?
Hey, Ed, I have a personal story for you. Right before the Iraq War started, I was walking at night not far from Tampa, Florida, which is where CENTCOM is, and the command for the war. And I just happened to see above me in the sky, a craft that I assume was like a U.S. NATO kind of craft. And then it kicked it in gear and vanished right in front of me.
Yeah.
And the speed it was going at should have been, way past the speed of sound. Right, but there was nothing.
But you won't know, they don't break the barrier because they have a magnetic or a synthetic type force field around them. And unless you're passing through our force field, you're not going to change the thing and make the waves with the air. And the waves of the air is what makes the sound, the shock wave.
Well, in any case, I assumed at the time, and it still seems likely to me, that was just people coming in and out from NATO or the British Prime Minister or whoever, head of the British Defense or whatever, coming to the Tampa area for their various meetings on the Iraq War that was, starting in 2 weeks or whatever.
Well, believe me, there are beings that are probably in the government that have ability to travel with elite craft undetected. And you've probably seen some of that because we have, back 8 years ago, we had over 3,000 spacecraft of different variations and sizes in our arsenal. And when Gary McKenna heard me talking about this type of stuff, he went to the computers and went in and found out that what I had been saying was true. And then he even tried to warn them that they were leaving a dangerous area there, that they weren't protecting it right. And he got caught, but he also gave them a warning that they need to cover up their paperwork and their trails to get in and control this stuff. And the guy should have got an award for bringing it to our attention and trying to warn our government that they were being stupid about this. And instead they tried to battle him and get him imprisoned and all that. And his mother is a super fine lady, and she says that he is not allowed to use a computer or anything anymore, and he's got all these rules to go by. And I have friends that know him and talk to him, and he tells them that basically Ed Grimsley's right, and we could all be in trouble, and this stuff is really happening. But yet he can't go on a computer anymore and do any of that. But there's a possibility that we're going to put on a good-sized conference, and there's some things happening in England that we're going to go there and photograph it and get the information on it and probably bring it out to the world. But there's alien craft harvesting minerals and things in part of England. And people don't know it, can't see it, but when you go through the goggles or you do a mind thing like the remote viewing that the government trains, like Damien Brinkley does, and I do a little of it, but I'm not real good at it, but I do some, and it's so real. It's so real. You can remote view places and find out things, and our human mind has a lot of power that we don't know how to use and access. So be aware that maybe it's a good thing, because how would you want to know what your neighbor's thinking, or that if he was having sex with his wife, or he was gay, and or whatever? There would be no privacy at all. So I think that some of it's a good thing, some of it's a bad thing. And I think when we develop to a certain point to where our morals and our ability to judge and create is at a good level, then maybe we'll have more of those abilities. And the more we get, the more we got to control.
Well, let's hope
how
things.
dangerous it would be if people could kill with their mind, like the movie Looking at Staring at Goats. There's actually military experiments that really took place, and they were killing goats with the human minds, and that was a fact. And one of the things is there's a couple of high-up military people that are getting older and slowing down a little bit, but they were there. They were part of it.
Well, I think we know that they're experimenting with these things. And, come on, this has been talked about in martial arts forever, that particularly high-level assassins and such are there. So that's something we know about. But getting back to the stuff in the sky, do you go on sky watches? Are there events that people can, any speeches and things, conferences and things that people can come and see a presentation by you?
Sometimes, but I get blackballed a few times about whether they want to hear what I have to say, because there are a lot of people that are talking trash and are probably government cover-up people that are basically trying to control and take over the UFO world, and they don't want me to tell the truth, so they kind of like put the zappy on me and say, "Oh, that guy, he's full of crap," whatever. And then when you hear their speech and what they're saying, they're giving you jibber jabber, and they're putting more confusion on you and giving you a little bit of light and putting a lot of darkness on it. And so I've learned some of these people, and I don't associate with them. And there's a lot of corruption, whether it's the private sector of the world or it's the alien researchers. There's a lot of conflict. So I go and do what I can, but I don't get big money to go do it. I usually am volunteered, and I try to show people and do what I can. And it's spreading, it's working, but not as fast as it should. And if I had a lot of money, I would be able to build devices and travel. I would be able to make electricity free, or not completely free, but energy. But all the people who've done this in the past have been killed, manipulated, controlled, or imprisoned. And Tesla, I don't believe Tesla was a regular human being. I believe he was a hybrid, or he was from another era or another planet, and he came here, got here to help. And then people like Edison and Rockefeller and then got into him, held money, and then controlled him lot of this stuff. And he may have been taken prisoner, and he may be used by the military right now. But who knows if he's still alive? And with genetics and researching and stem cells and that, I think if they wanted to, they could have a person right now of 3,400 years at least. And I think Adolf Hitler might have been living a lot longer than people thought. And he might have ended up in South America and got to a ripe age. And there's rumors that he had moved and went into Montana.
Right about what you were saying before, is that it seems like your plans to do speaking engagements or different projects, they do get thwarted. You'll have the plans all in line. I've known you for several years now, and I've heard about a lot of the projects that were, you know, supposedly sure things, television shows, radio shows that were going to be series, and then it's always, you know, it never is able to happen.
Well,
and
that one thing that I was going to get you involved in and have you come out for being part of the first show, they wanted to interview, they wanted to speak about it and put it on a certain channel, and they were going to come into San Diego, and I was going to guide them and give them some of my footage and give them new footage, and it was going to be a pilot show. And then they was from England, and they came in and did some research, got ready, and I was supposed to go down there, and all of a sudden they were told, stop, you're not going to film Ed Grimsley, you're not going to talk about UFOs, you're not going to talk about night vision, and if you do, we're going to shut the show down, and people aren't going to like what happens. And they canceled it, the producer, and one of the directors that had everything lined up to do the show on me and the truth about the UFOs, he got very upset, and he quit the production company in England that was going to do 6 shows.
Well, that just seems to happen over and over again. And the thing with the Sci-Fi Channel as well.
It's a constant thing. They don't. Yeah. Well, it was another company that was going to do it, and they got shut down.
Yeah,
hey, Ed, have you got any group outings or anything coming up? I mean, is there anything where people can kind of see this in action?
Well, I've got a couple of things I'm trying to plan, but I've been going through a lot of personal hell, and it's basically that every time I get something planned or worked on that seems like a scheduled skywatch with a massive amount of people and TV hooked onto the cameras and speakers and that, it gets interfered with. And somebody says, oh, if Ed Grimsley comes and talks, I'm not going to come and talk. So, and then a couple of them do that, and then the guy that's putting it on says, do you mind if you don't come? I'm really sorry about it. And I said, no, that's fine, because you see, I don't want to be around those people anyway. And if you would rather hear lies and money-making things rather than the truth for free, then I can't help you. So you make your choice. And that's happened probably a good dozen times. So,
well, I've known you for probably at least 3 years, and I've just seen it over and over again, probably at least 5 or 6 times that I'm personally aware of, where there was a project going, people were making plans around it, it seemed like it was definitely a go, and then just it fizzles out into nothing, or then some other people get involved and they're all hostile toward you. I keep hearing it over and over again. Conferences, television shows, radio shows. It seems like it happens every time.
Yeah.
Well, that tells you, when you're getting flack, you're over the target, right, Ed? So that's a good.
You're getting fired on, you must be in a direct hit. And wanted me to come to Japan, and they would help organize a big skywatch and put a TV, televise it, and do all that. And we were into the project, ready to finalize everything. And they said, sorry, we're going to have to back off because we have other reasons that we can't do that. We can't even discuss what has went on and why we can't. And I says, well, do you think it's like a government or a conspiracy type? And they go, definitely right. But he says, we can't get involved in this and do that because we have a wife and children and family, and we're not going to go with the show and put that on over there.
Well, Ed, it seems to be above government. Hey, so people can find your night vision goggles and more information about you just by searching or looking at edgrimsley.com, right?
Well, that's kind of a help, but the best thing to do is call me.
Okay.
I try to answer the phone all the time, and my phone number is 707-478-2540, and I try to answer the phone whenever I can, and I can give them information about where they are, what country, and what goggle I can get for them. And I try to just make $150, $200 a pair so that I can help my research work. But there's some other companies that are charging $34 and more for goggles that don't do anything better than mine. And so I try to get them a pair of goggles that normally is like $3,200, $3,400, and I try to get it to them for $27. And now with my own goggles, there's times when I can get prices down. Depends on where they are and what type I have to fix for them. I can get it down to $2,200, $2,300 for a pair. There's a single size pair that I can get it for $18 or $19, and I can show it to them in black and white. I can help set it up with a camera. It costs more, but I'll make adaptations for it where you slide it on, you look through one side, you film through the other. Believe me, there's people copying me, and then some people are real liars, and they say, oh, I built this 20 years ago before Ed Grimsley did. I'm the godfather of UFO night vision. And I just kind of laugh, and I think, well, they'll lie. Let them pay when they pay, everything costs something, whether you pay now or pay later. And
hey, Ed, are there some videos or cameras or things you recommend, or how can somebody look into this? Just call you? Or what's the best?
Yeah, just call me. I have people call me all over the world. Sometimes it's a good name, sometimes it's a bad name. But I like to be a little bit of a character, and if I can make somebody have a laugh, then it's better to have people laughing and smiling than crying and dying.
Oh,
and
for sure.
I'm afraid that people don't know, but they better get that food supply. They better get the staples. They better get the rice, the beans, the citrus, powdered drinks that can be added, the powdered milk to help their babies and things, because we're going to be deliberately damaged, and we got to fight back. We got to stand up, and whatever you do not surrender your guns. Those countries that have no guns, those people are going to be hurting badly. And, your neighbor might be trying to steal your food or kill your family, and it's not going to be a nice place.
Hey, Ed.
Not the World War II and Nazi damages was bad, but this is going to be worse.
Ed, one last question for you. Is the activity in the sky picking up? I mean, when you first started, whenever it was compared to now, is there a lot more going on now?
Definitely a lot.
What kind? More of them fighting each other? More? What do you see now compared to 10 years ago?
I see a lot of fighting. I see a lot of patrolling, and I believe that it's basically a way of that more and more that we're being taken control of. And if they couldn't control us on their own by some kind of international or universal control, then now they're working on humans and humanoids to control other humanoids and using them to control us. So the fact is that I think that aliens have been manipulating the human race for a while and learning more and more about it. And I think some of them wants to take us over and control them and control the people, and others are probably trying to save us and help us not be taken over. And there's proof that the world has been destroyed a number of times. And when they find a dental drill and some gold equipment in coal that's embedded in coal that reads out to be 2-3 million years old, that means there was a civilization here that got lost, damaged, when there's people that have a city that's off the coast of India, and it gets underwater and damaged. There's a lot of things that happen. Earth shifting, water, ice melting, whatever, but the whole city destroyed. And in their records, there was others from space attacked them, and they attacked back with weapons. And this just is not something new. It's been in history for a long time. Look in the pyramids and the carvings and the work there, and then look at the different humans that have the big elongated head, or the 25-foot tall giant people, or the red-haired giants that the Indians fought off and killed, and it's in their records, and they've got some of the heads and stuff, but this is all being hidden. And civilization is like
for sure. Michelle, you got a question?
Oh, I'm interested in all those topics Ed's talking about. You know, the Hindus had what were their ships called? Vimanas or whatever, that they talked about them, you know, shooting fire in the sky. But one thing I've really noticed, I've been out on probably half a dozen sky watches. Every time you go out, you see something. I mean, you never will see nothing. And the last time, it was really, I think it was the best time because we had the better goggles. You know, and I have price checked the different goggles around. I mean, I looked on eBay, I've looked on different places where you can buy them, and Ed definitely has he's offering a good deal. I think, you know, it'd be good for Ed to be able to monetize his work. He's got so many people working against him. It's you know, financially a big strain on him to try and do his presentations, and you know, you have to go for smaller venues that don't have the same kind of resources that they can put toward promoting his work and his stuff he does. So, but I definitely, the last time we went, the goggles that had the white tubes instead of the green ones, they were way better. And every time that I've gone out, even if we only went out even if the viewing was only good for 45 minutes before the clouds rolled in, we saw a lot of stuff every single time. And I love doing it. I can't wait till you come back down, Ed. I'll go do another sky watch.
Okay. Well, you're going to have to cook me a good dinner, or I'm not going to hang out.
Okay. Well, not a problem.
Well, on that happy note, why don't we call it a wrap for this time? Ed, we appreciate you giving us some of these details about all this amazing stuff in the sky, and people can give you a call and find out how to get the different types of goggles and setups and whatever there are. I
can legally ship into Japan good grade, high grade, visible goggles that I can probably $2,800, and the same goggle or same similarity is like $3,400 here, and not legal to ship.
Yeah, and the tubes aren't as good. They're not as bright.
Right. Maybe your
company
Ed, and your show, maybe we ought to put on a sky watch in Japan and advertise it and get some things going.
Well, I'll keep that in mind. So, Ed, thanks so much for coming. We appreciate it, and Michelle as well. So that's it, folks. It's a wrap. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good night.